You're listening to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Here you'll gain tools to lead proactively, conquer overwhelm, and revitalize your law enforcement teams and your agency.
We're your hosts, Michael and Cathy McIntosh. Mike is a retired sheriff and current division chief in the Denver metro area with nearly 40 years of law enforcement experience.
Cathy is a business and branding expert and a longtime law enforcement wife with a unique perspective on the human side of law enforcement.
Together, we share a powerful blend of practical experience and insightful roadmaps to help you elevate your call to service. Welcome back to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. We are so glad that you are here with us. We had a scary incident happen last night. Our kids called just as we were sitting down to dinner and said that they'd been in a car accident with their kids, and turned out that they hit a deer, which was just not what a mama's heart wants to hear. It was traumatic, and it was scary, and it was just kind of an out of the blue, everything was fine and then everything wasn't fine kind of a situation. But the police, they were very close to a firehouse. The police took a little bit of time to get there, state troopers did, but fire was on scene almost immediately, and they were so good to our people. Yeah. And I know that law enforcement officers tend to not so subtly tease fire for the things that they do, but I just want to give a shout out because they were awesome. Absolutely. And they always are. And it's all in fun. We really, really do see a lot of respect between your two professions, but there is some verbal tension that arises sometimes. But I just wanted to say thanks to any firefighters who are listening in, because this podcast honestly is for you as well. But anyway, that's just one of the many, many things that has happened since we sat down to record an episode. And another thing that happened is you just finished a pretty extensive wellness course, getting certified to be an instructor through the FBI National Academy. Right. So I watched you bring some homework home. I watched you practice some things, come home with notes. You just were reviewing, and you had a whole lot of energy about it. It really kind of lit your fire. And I'm just wondering, what was it? Give us the quick version. What stood out to you from that course?
Yeah, when I first saw an opportunity to go to that course, it really kind of struck me. The course title was Comprehensive Wellness and Resilience. And in the latter part of my career, it's really been on my heart, on my mind, a lot, just to make sure that, one, that I finish well, and that I really want to contribute in a very important way to law enforcement, to first responders, even in my retirement. And so this was really something that I was looking at that would give me an opportunity to do that, to be able to kind of give back to this profession. And as I went through it, I usually understand a lot about wellness and resilience. We're very, very fortunate in the agency that I work for that we really prioritize wellness.
And I think your program is leading the nation in a lot of its innovation.
It is. And when you look at how many times our wellness group is asked to travel, not just through the state, but throughout the United States, and now with the IACP, they pull them in to do wellness training. So it's always been there and available to me. And sometimes we forget that we're the one-off. We're not like most organizations. Most organizations are still really trying to get a program built up, or they're just at the very beginning stages. When I reflect back on what we covered, it was, the sleep, the stress, the moral injury, the peer support, And as I was going through that course, it really provided me some real practical tools as a leader to be able to understand that there's a very, very common thread in leadership and wellness, and how important that is, not just for ourselves, but as a leader to understand how critical that is to our teams, and to the other leaders within the organization. And we really know that culture flows downhill, and if leaders are not the model, then it's not going to stick. And one of the points and one of the focus was spirituality. And I will tell you that that's probably one that a lot of people just gloss over. And I think that there's different reasons why that happens. And so we really wanted to kind of talk through that today.
Yeah, we did. And it's been a central part of our wellness and resilience as a family throughout your entire career. And I can remember a long, long time ago, you came home and you said, we teach street survival all the time, but no one's really teaching soul survival. And we need to have that. And I can remember just kind of taking a mental note of that conversation. But what does that mean to you that we would have a way to have soul survival as well?
Right. I think we do a really good job in law enforcement that we prepare for those things that could cause us harm. That's what we look at. Right. So whether it's an ambush or a high risk stop or critical incidents. But one of the things that we kind of don't pay attention to is that slow burn, or that, I guess what I would call that ambush on the inside. It's that compounding stress. It's that unresolved grief, that moral fatigue. And for a lot of officers, especially over the long haul, that purpose and hope, that can get really jaded, or we can be cynical, and it can really start to shake our senses of what is right and really who we are. And so it's very, very important that we stay on top of that, and that we're, like we've talked a lot about on this podcast, that we're intentional about what we do,
including spirituality, which brings us to the point of our conversation today, because when we talk about wellness and resilience, the spiritual side of things, as you said, a lot of people overlook it, or they just poo-poo the idea. It's kind of the quiet corner in the room, right? It's not something that everybody's running to. And we've been taught for decades not to, share your faith at work, and that's not the place to do it. So it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't seem as important as it truly is. So people sometimes see the value, they see that it matters, but they don't know how to play it out. They don't know how to have those conversations at work. And in this episode, we are not trying to prescribe anyone's beliefs. We're really here to help our listeners start to explore how their faith can function as a strength, as a ballast, as one of the anchors in a very healthy life and a healthy career.
Yeah. When I look back at my journey, I've had leaders that have been a part of my life who have been open about their faith. And it was not in a pushy way. It was kind of just the way that they lived. It was real, right? And I could see how they handled pressure, how they navigated the gray areas
that always come,
right? And the fact that they handled those with integrity. And I wasn't the only person that noticed that, right? Other people noticed and commented on that as well. I come from a kind of a background where at a very young age, I had that Christian faith. That's just the way that I grew up. grew up in the church, so to speak, from from my youth, probably 7 or 8 years old. And, you know, I I try to live that out, not just at home and in my personal life, but I also try to live that out in my work life because that's who I am. That's what my makeup is.
We've got listeners who are thinking to themselves, I'm not religious. I don't want to be religious. Maybe I should just tune out. But that's really not the point of our conversation. We're just trying to help have a conversation that is about purpose and identity and community and practices that can build resilience. And for a lot of people, us included, faith is the framework that holds it all together. It's like the glue that holds the puzzle together. We just want to show you kind of a behind the scenes look from a leader who has integrated faith into his family, into his workplace, and created a healthy leadership presence all at the same time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really appreciated about the course that I went through is when we got to this segment, we started talking about, okay, we're going to go through the spirituality segment. And you could feel some of the oxygen leave the room, right? Because it can be very uncomfortable. But what I really appreciated about the instructor was he made sure that this is not about one specific faith, that people are spiritual in a lot of different ways, and then went on to say this is how I live that out in my life, which I really appreciated, and it really kind of just took down the timbre of the room. One of the things that's nice is, and you say, if somebody wants to tune out, they can, but I would encourage them to stay because they can apply these principles whether they share the same beliefs as I do, right? I'm not trying to mix, the church and the profession. It's more about ensuring that you have some spirituality and resilience as one of those pillars of wellness.
And again, this is just intended to be a very candid, open, vulnerable conversation about something that's existed in our lives for a very, very long time. It really is the ballast that holds us afloat. It keeps our life from being topsy-turvy, so we're not so tossed around by wind and waves and things that can create angst and stress and really starts to throw our lives off course. This is a foundation of our family, and we're just happy to share it with people.
Yeah.
I would love to know and just hear, I know you said that you became a Christian, you started attending church with your family at about 7 or 8 years old, but what convinced you, not that this was the faith that your family had, but that it was for you personally?
Right. And that didn't happen at that age. It was much later in life. And I would tell you that it's, sometimes we share that faith of our family, or of our grandparents or mom and dad, a friend. And so for that first part of the journey, that's what it was. You're doing that because you're seeing that modeled in front of you, and seems like that's the way that it should be. When I first got into law enforcement, that's really where I call it putting your faith to the test. That's where it really started to become real for me.
And you saw some things that you wouldn't normally see as a civilian. And I can remember conversations where you didn't really question God, but you had to rely on the fact that God is here, He is present, He sees all of this. He's just, He's kind, He's loving. there's going to be a positive outcome. Maybe on the next side of heaven, but there will be a positive outcome for all these situations that you started to see.
Right. Yeah. There would be, especially, when I worked the jail for 2 years before I started to work patrol. And when I went to patrol, then some of those scenes that I responded to,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I needed to start really relying upon my faith to get me through some of the things that I was going through. Because I had not seen these things. I had not experienced them growing up. And to start wrestling with the fact that there is evil in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in a profession where we're battling evil all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the things that we see on a semi-regular basis, some people may see once, or most people never have to experience what.
That's what we hope for them.
Right. Yeah. What we in law enforcement, or firefighters, they have to experience some of those same traumas when they respond to those scenes alongside of us.
Mm-hmm. My story was completely different because I grew up in a home where the name of Jesus was essentially a swear word. It was not looked upon with favor, and it wasn't a good situation. And then I met this really handsome fella when I was in high school who invited me to church, and it was the first exposure that I had had to God outside of um, the grumbling and complaining and the things that go on about Christians, not necessarily about God, but Christians are horrible, horrible people was what I heard my entire life. And all of a sudden I started attending church with you and your family. And for the first time, I started to feel seen for who I was. And I'll explain a little bit that I had siblings that were extremely rebellious, lots of drugs, lots of alcohol, lots of, fights in the living room, and not coming home when they were supposed to. And it was just this tension and this conflict all the time. My siblings were both 10 years older than me. They each came from separate marriages. My parents married, each with a child, and then they had me. So I was quite a bit younger, did not understand all the dynamics of what was going on. But as I was brought up, I was considered the good one. But all of my goodness was essentially based on my behavior. It was because I was behaving well. So there was this increased pressure on me to always be such a good girl. And when you started taking me to church and inviting me there, I met God in a way that I thought He doesn't even really care what I do, if I'm good or bad. Obviously, we want to have less and less sin in our life as we draw closer to God. We want to make less mistakes. We want to hit His standard as much as we possibly can. But the truth is, nobody can. And He didn't love me less because I'd made a mistake or missed the mark. He loved me more because I was turning to Him. And that was kind of the reality piece for me. And when it became really real was when our marriage nearly crumbled.
Right.
And it was turn to God for rescue or file the papers, because
Right.
it was going to be one or the other. And we chose to turn to God, and holy smokes, did things change at that point. Just saved our marriage. I mean, we've been married 38 years, and we're not just muddling through. We have a phenomenal marriage where we love to be together, and we just enjoy doing life together. We don't always agree. We don't never fight. We do fight, but it's just a much different world than it was before we really cried out and said, God, help us.
Yeah.
And then also, as I started to grow in my faith and grow closer to God, I started to get into prayer groups outside of the church. And we would pray for our children. This is a group of moms. We'd pray for our children. We'd pray for their schools. And we would pray for our spouses. And I can remember praying for you over and over and over again, that God would protect your heart and your mind in Him. Mm-hmm. And it's astonishing to me how you don't hold on to the trauma that you see every day. I honestly find that miraculous.
Yeah.
Because when when we go through all this leadership stuff, it would be so nice to have some stories to share about law enforcement. Most of the time you're like, I don't know. I don't think about those, And what a healthy, wonderful, beautiful thing. They don't keep you up at night.
Yeah.
There's no stress. Those images don't replay in your head over and over again. That's a direct answer to prayer. And
Absolutely.
I absolutely find that to be miraculous. And if there's one segment of faith and wellness that I can see as a spouse, that's it.
Mm.
That is it. You never, ever, ever carried your work home with you. And with what you face every day, that can only be the work of God, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'm blessed because you say I never carried my work home. And I think that you discount, how much of a rock you are for me when I come home and we talk about some of those things. And I think that that's so important to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that this is a safe place to be able to
Yeah.
come home and have those conversations. But it's something that has been instrumental in our marriage and our relationship and our journey along this path.
Yeah. When I say you never brought it home, I didn't see the weight of it come home. I didn't see the heaviness, the cynicism, the negativity, the gunk that could so easily follow you through the door when you came home. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not that we never talked about it or,
Right.
you never thought about it ever again. It just didn't penetrate who you are. It didn't penetrate your identity. It didn't make you see the world through such a lens of darkness that you didn't even want to be out in it. I just never saw that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, as a leader, how do you practically live out your faith at work without imposing it on anyone, without, telling people, you need to follow Jesus and you need to be a believer, which you want for everyone. We want that for everyone because it's so good to us. We want to share it, but it's not ours to give away. It's a very personal decision.
For me, that's the key right there. It is a very personal decision, and it's something that is you can talk about it, but you have to tread on it lightly. And so what I try to do is make myself available. And most of the time, what I have seen is people have come to me and asked me questions. And through that conversation, specifically questions about how do you believe in God in an evil world with the things that you see, and having the ability to talk those out with them, and then sharing with them my experiences, being vulnerable with some of our experiences. I don't know how many people I've told that, if it wasn't for our faith in God, we wouldn't be married. And talking, talking through that and what that looked like, and how you apply that practically to the situation that they're in. I try to make myself available to them to help. The way that I approach my job, the way that I approach work, I try to live as Christ would call me to live. I miss the mark, but I try to live that way. And other people notice that. And when they notice that, they ask those questions. So that's how I share that. And then there's other, there's other folks that I've run across during my career that we share the same faith. We can have some of those same conversations. Do the iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to each other about what it is that we're going through, or maybe I went through something and I want to talk to somebody who's walked through a similar incident. It's really important to have that. We are very fortunate in our agency to have a chaplain.
Yeah, a great, amazing chaplain.
Yeah, and a great chaplain's program
Mm-hmm.
that's there. And if you were to watch that program, watch that man, he's not somebody that's out there beating any of the deputies over the head with a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
He's there as somebody who listens.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God, if they believe like he does or not, he's still going to be there to walk with them through whatever it is that they're walking through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I want to be also available to my coworkers, my friends, my family, my children, my grandchildren.
I feel like I want to talk about this for hours and hours. We could literally have such a long conversation. And I'm trying to be very mindful of our time together. I want to ask you, though, before we get into the challenge for the week, who is God to you? And I don't mean theologically. I don't mean what did you learn about him in Scripture and what does the Bible say about who God is? Who is God to you relationally? And how does that play out in the way that your faith intersects your wellness?
When I look back over not just my career, but kind of my work life, right? When I get out of high school and get into the workforce, I didn't, especially when I went into the Navy. I tell people that, I didn't pack Jesus in my sea bag when I left for the Navy. And I really missed that. There was a hole there in just kind of the way that I was living and who I was, and so when I got back and I got into law enforcement, it was very easy not to get back into my faith, to to study the word and to go to church and especially with most of the time I worked on Sundays.
Right, shift work is huge obstacle.
So yeah, it's very, very difficult, and for a lot of my career, I was on shift work.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I mean, we talk about our marriage, and that was really kind of that shift back to you need to go back to your faith, go back to your reliance and your foundation in your faith. And that's really where it started. And what that looks like for me is I have the opportunity to, cast my burdens upon my Creator, which sounds a little bit weird, but when you're able to do that, especially when you think about all of the junk that can hit us in life to begin with, but then you compound that with being in law enforcement, in the junk that you see and the things that you walk through, to be able to cast that upon Christ, because he said that he wants to carry that for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I live that out.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds simple, but it also might sound like it's very, very foreign and fake. And how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's through, through building that relationship. And it really is a relationship that I have with, with the Lord in my faith there. Studying like I would for, getting to know somebody, spending time with, when you start to talk about how do you get to know somebody, all of those things that we would do to get to know each other, whether it's a friend or a spouse or somebody, a coworker. How do you get to know them? Well, you get to know them by spending time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And our Creator's no different.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to know the Creator? How do you get to know Christ? You spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's through the Word, through prayer, through worship, through being in church. So that, to me, that's what gets me through this long career and profession that I've been in. I'm a firm believer that the answer to your prayers um, is the reason why I'm able to still have, a positive attitude, still love the job that I get to do, still want to be very involved in it, even after I retire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine not being a part of that and wanting to ensure that folks get to that retirement end and they have a purpose and they have a why.
And they still have a soft heart.
And they still have a soft heart.
Yeah.
And they still care about people.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't look at every person and with cynicism
Mm-hmm.
and think that everybody's bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to me.
It is. You talked about getting to know God by spending time with Him. And I just want to go back to the question was, who is God to you relationally? We've talked about this before, and you didn't pack Jesus in your sea bag when you went to the Navy and you came home, and there was a time when you had to reconnect with God, and you knew it was the right thing to do. God is steadfast. He is not changing. He is not moved. He's patient. He waited for you to turn back. I love that. I love that so much. And He's our protector, and He's our friend, and He's our counselor and our guide. And those are all things that you hit on.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to name them because He's so good and He's so big and so much more than we can ever even comprehend. But as we encourage our listeners to start to become curious about faith, about spirituality in their lives, this is where we get to the challenge part. How can they even dive into that? What does that look like for someone like me who did not grow up in the faith? For someone like me who had never even considered a relationship with Jesus, what would you say to that person on how to even start to learn more, or to pursue their curiosity, or to try to figure out if this is for them or not?
One of the things that becomes very, very important in time is critically important in our lives right now. It doesn't matter who you talk to. Nobody ever has enough time. They're trying to find a way of getting more time, but we all just get the 24 hours a day. It's, again, being intentional in making the most of those 24 hours a day. And it really starts with just taking 10 or 15 minutes. It does not have to be, well, I have to join a Bible study, or I have to get into a specific small group, or I have to start attending church, or that will come in time when that becomes important to you. And you can make that a priority. But it all starts with that first step of just taking 10 or 15 minutes to yourself, completely by yourself, completely quiet, No distractions, no phones. Yes, I know. Very, very tough. No phones. And really starting to focus on what is guiding my life right now. Is it mission? Is it the next call? Is it career goals? Is it my marriage? Is stress guiding my life right now? Really start to focus on what that is. And if it isn't what you want it to be, then start making that change. And I always liken it to I had the opportunity to spend time on an aircraft carrier. And one of the things that I learned very, very well is that you don't turn an aircraft carrier around on a dime. Mm-hmm. It takes quite a bit of time and space to get that aircraft carrier going in the different direction, in a different direction. But if you want to do it, you have to start making those moves. Mm-hmm. And getting back on target, you start to make those small adjustments so that you start pointing back to the direction that you really want to be. That's the first important step.
I think a good follow-up question would be, who or what in my life is big enough to carry the burdens and the heartaches and the stress that I'm feeling right now? And for many of us, just even asking that question opens a door to exploring faith for the first time and even looking at it maybe as a possibility. And for some, it means starting to learn who God is, what he has to say about purpose and calling and your identity and who you are. Those kinds of things struck me really, really early when I was introduced to him. And when you can come before God with an openness to even consider who he might be, he's going to meet you there.
Yeah.
He's not going to reject you. He's not going to say, well, you're how old and you're just now coming to me? No, you're out. There's none of that. There's nothing in your past that can keep you from his love today. Mm-hmm. There just isn't. It doesn't work that way.
Right. No, absolutely nothing.
Right.
Nothing. It matters not what you've done, where you've been, who you are. It does not matter.
And if you just start with curiosity and that's all you have, that's enough.
That's enough.
And just move into it. We talk about reading the Bible. The book of John is a great place to start. Also, Psalms and Proverbs are great places to start. A lot of people don't have a Bible. You've got one on your phone. There's free apps. We'll put one on our show notes.
Yeah.
But you can have a Bible as close as your cell phone, and you can just start reading a verse a day. Don't even worry about a chapter a day or a paragraph. Just start and ask God, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And again, it's that curiosity issue.
And that's why I think when you talk about the book of John, there's 66 books in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Some of them are very easily understood and applied, and some of them
study.
You feel like you've got to be, like this scholar in order to understand what's going on. And a lot of that is because of the time that it was going on and the time that it was written. Mm-hmm. But the book of John is one of those that's very it's very user friendly,
for sure,
to use that term. You can read that and you can start to understand and apply some of that. And it's one of the four gospels that
tells Jesus,
the story of Jesus, which I think is a really great place to start.
And we can train our bodies, we can sharpen our minds, but to guard our hearts, you and I believe it's all about spirituality. It's all about faith.
Yeah.
So this week we challenge our listeners to pause, reflect, and just take the first step toward exploring and learning more. And you might find that faith is just that next layer of wellness that you did not even know you needed.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. Thanks for the conversation today.
Yeah. I wish it weren't so short. Ready to build a stronger team, improve your reputation, strengthen officer safety, and recruit top talent? Visit us at leleaders.com and schedule a call with us today. We'd love to discuss how our coaching programs, workshops, and keynote addresses can help you build proactive leaders in a reactive profession.
In the meantime, if you like what you've heard today, we'd love your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.